Hey everyone, Happy New Year and welcome to a special episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today we're going to do things a little bit differently. Twice a month since June, we've brought you insights from some of the top innovators and leaders from inside the direct selling channel and its surrounding community. Along the way, we've been given valuable perspectives that have opened our minds and even in some cases, challenged the way that we think about direct selling. The generosity of these leaders to share not just their time, but the wisdom that they've gleaned through years of experience has accentuated one of the many things that makes direct selling unique as a channel. Where other industries might be less willing to share learnings and help others avoid some of the challenges and pitfalls that they've faced, leaders in direct selling have been universally willing to share their insights, strategies, successes, and even candidly with us some of the speed bumps that they've hit along the way. What has become so evident during the past 6 months of this podcast is that where other industries see competition, direct selling sees collaboration. There's a genuine belief that a rising tide lifts all boats, and by being part of that tide, these leaders know that they're creating a stronger and more resilient direct selling channel that can not just weather whatever economic or global dynamics that they face, but it'll thrive in the midst of those challenges. For this episode, we're going to go back and look at some of my favorite insights from each of the interviews from 2021. As you can imagine, this proved to be a pretty challenging task, as there's so many great takeaways from our guests. If you'd like to hear more about this, I invite you to revisit the full episodes that are available both in audio and video format at directsellingnews.com under the Watch and Listen page. Before we get into the highlights from 2021, I have an exciting announcement to share. DSN is hosting a first-of-its-kind tech summit designed specifically for CIOs, CTOs, and other tech executives in direct selling. As a marketing person, I would also encourage other sales and marketing execs to attend to try to learn to close that gap between the IT world, the sales and marketing world. So make sure that you sign up and come learn about emerging tech, market trends, and how to confidently navigate these increasingly blurred lines between tech solutions and marketing innovation. You'll be able to join forward-thinking leaders to explore other trends, accelerate learning, and guide near-term decisions, all with one goal, and that's to help you and your organization achieve stronger performance against your most critical priorities. So this virtual live stream event will take place on Tuesday, February 22nd. So look for more information and details in early January, but for now, we invite you to save the date for Tuesday, February 22nd. So now let's take a look back at some of the great learnings and insights from 2021's Direct Approach podcast episodes. We kicked off the whole podcast with Mark Stastny, Chief Marketing Officer for Sensi. Mark shared several compelling insights, but what really stuck with me after this interview was what he had to say about company values.
When I first joined, so I joined in 2008, 2009, we had some real challenging issues from a business perspective at that time. We were trying to keep up with growth. Hypergrowth was getting ahead of us and we were having a challenge. So there were some instances where we under-delivered significantly to our consultants, and that caused them to under-deliver to their customers. And I watched Orville and Heidi in their decision-making process when we were in some of those pretty challenging, tough times in those first couple of years. And most of my background, whether it was on the agency side, working with companies, or obviously my Hewlett-Packard career, was working with publicly traded companies that are very geared towards analyst reports and near-term or short-term financial goals. And that's how those companies are geared. That's how they're driven. So that was where I had come from and was most comfortable operating. I watched Orville and Heidi in those first couple of years make decisions, multi-million-dollar decisions that would hit the bottom line in a bad way to do the right thing or make things right for our consultants or our consultants' customers, honoring and respecting the relationship between our consultants, which again was a pretty small fledgling field at the time. But I watched them repeatedly make decisions, and they didn't even ask for the financial analysis. They didn't even ask for the spreadsheet to say, show me how hard this is going to hit us. They said, we're going to do it because it is the right thing to do. So I learned very early on in those first couple years that the reason Sensi felt different from an environment perspective was because those values were truly a manifestation of who Orville and Heidi were or aspired to be, and they were a lens through which they made decisions. And One freaked me out a little at the beginning. I have to be honest. It was a little bit alarming because I remember several times thinking if this were a publicly traded company, these Orville and Heidi would be fired for the decisions they're making because it would likely hurt the business in the near term, even though it was the absolute right thing to do in the long term. And most businesses, my experience with businesses, most businesses aren't operated with that kind of freedom to be what I would call a values-based business. The mission statement Orville and Heidi put in place right at the beginning has not changed at all. The values, the 3 values, what I learned is those were not just statements on a wall. They were lenses through which decisions were evaluated on a daily basis. So fast forward to the meeting that you were talking about. We had built up an executive team and we were still kind of coming through growth pretty well. But we had built this executive team that was used to doing functional plans and quarterly reviews from other industries. One, you got to understand Orville and Heidi are entrepreneurs at heart. Orville and Heidi bristle a bit at corporate bureaucracy. They do. Ask Heidi to attend a planning meeting, particularly an annual planning meeting. She would probably be rather be anywhere else in the world rather than that. So it's painful as is. But she came in and we started going through these very siloed thinking. It wasn't really integrated thinking. It was very siloed thinking. Basically functional plans that all of us were going to bat for whatever great ideas we had and whatever funding we felt we needed. And Heidi picked up on a couple of things. One, they weren't integrated in their thought at all. And two, they really hadn't been developed with the consultant and our values as a significant lens through which they're evaluated. And so her body language shifted. She was sitting in the front of the room at the beginning, and then you could tell she was getting a little bit irritated and disinterested. And then she actually physically got up and walked towards the back of the room and kept listening politely to these presentations. But if you were reading her body language, you could tell she was getting less and less comfortable. And at one point, we got to a point where there was probably a pause, and she asked the question, what does any of this have to do with who we are, with our values, with Sensi spirit, and how we create energy and Sensi spirit amongst our consultants? And so the meeting pivoted at that point. I think Orville which is usually the case, Heidi usually will be the one that offers the incredible insight, usually in very few words. And then Orville, this is the dynamic of how the two of them just complement each other. He will pick up on that and he will say, okay, what are we going to do about it? So Orville took over, he took the pen, and we basically looked at all of the things that we had, and we graded ourselves based on our values, the lens of our values, against how each of the things on that list stood up against our core values. And so we basically revamped that was our annual planning meeting. We basically revamped everything, and we came together with what I would call would be a much more integrated view of the things that mattered most. And it fundamentally reshaped not only that year's plans, but I would say planning processes into future years. We've migrated. We don't do what I would call independent functional plans anymore. We have a much more integrated process. And trust me, how it relates to our values, the consultant perspective and point of view, or contributing to Sensi spirit is absolutely a lens through which we look at everything through.
I thought this was such an important lesson that we can all learn from. But Mark also had something to teach us about the importance of everyone learning to give and participate, and how that increases the value of not just the company, but its surrounding world as a whole.
Very much there is a mantra at Sensi, which is really central and core to our values, around contribute more than you take. You have to, if everyone in the world engaged every relationship, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship, with the thought or the idea that I'm approaching this relationship willing to give or contribute more than I'm looking to extract or take from it, then value in the world actually rises and increases. If everyone approaches those relationships the opposite direction, I'm wanting to take more than I'm willing to give, value actually decreases in the world. And again, comes from an Albert Einstein quote that impressed him as a young boy, but we live by that constantly. And that, again, those dynamics of contribute more than you take bidirectionally, both ways, was in strong play in the early months of the pandemic.
Such a great approach that can have a global impact. Another way to make a difference as a company is through innovation. And Heather Chastain, founder and CEO of Bridgehead Collective, brought her 20 plus years of direct selling experience to give us a master class in strategy and innovation. She had this to say about the importance of leaders making room for innovation within their companies.
we need to make sure we're bringing in and allowing space for innovation, ideation, great new ideas. Often, because look, our industry is made up of entrepreneurial CEOs, right? Like that's how it works, who are always out there learning, listening, coming up with ideas, thinking of things, right? And in an organization that doesn't have a good strategic process, often what'll happen is they'll come in with a great idea. They saw a TED Talk last night. We need to do this. And all of a sudden the whole organization is just pivoted, charge, right? Well, and often those kinds of leaders reject the idea of a formal strategic process because they fear they're going to feel constrained or be constrained, right? That there isn't room for innovation. And that's critically important. So a technique I've used is to build into the process this idea of a great idea filter. So bring your ideas, bring that innovation, bring that insight, bring the light bulb moment. Let's then take that, bounce it up against the strategic plan that we have, evaluate it, and decide, is it a good fit? It may be genius. We got to make sure that we have space for genius. And so we incorporate that then into the plan and execute. It's also good to sort out because sometimes it's not always genius. Sometimes it's just a little distraction. And so by doing that in a disciplined way, we can filter out the distractions too, which help bring nice calm to an organization too, which is always welcome.
She also noted the importance of leaders embracing strategy and remaining committed to it.
As an organization, as a leadership team, you really need to believe that a well-executed strategic planning process is the path to solving a lot of the challenges. It is the path to eroding and getting rid of those roadblocks and those things that cause us to get off track and cause our teams to get disgruntled and all that other stuff, right? So it's about embracing as a leadership team, this is a process. And then Wayne, it's about sticking with it because it takes a couple years to really get in a flow with it, to really see the benefits, to really understand culturally how it shakes out. So it's sticking with it, not losing it on the first quarter when you missed an execution date and something else happened.
One of the important aspects of strategy is being able to ascertain how to connect with your prospective customers and meet them where they live. Brian Underwood, the founder and CEO of Prove It, understands this challenge well. As a successful entrepreneur himself and as a thought leader, Brian believes in investing in the emotional connection that can differentiate one brand from another. And he addressed that in our conversation together.
So community-based marketing to me is re-identifying what is valuable in today's marketplace. So if you want to build something to last, you got to be able to harness the emotional connection that your raving fans, your promoters, your distributors, and even your audience, because there's so many people that might be voyeuring your brand that aren't even a customer yet, right? So how are you doing things to create local involvement to see good that you're doing to the world? And when you do that, you all of a sudden create this community around your brand. So now all of a sudden you're a brand company, a lifestyle brand that means more to the person that says, yeah, I'm a part of that. Or and they use words like our, we, and that's super important to us. So that to me is what I identify with community. The transaction isn't more important than the person. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying from a language standpoint, community makes someone feel a little bit different level of connection. Community-based marketing. Oh, we market community first, sales later. So it's not transactional based because transaction is very fleeting. So if you take a look at any major brand in the world today, they're either fostered it unconsciously or just by circumstance, which sometimes is the best way to do it, or they do it very intentionally today. Star Wars is a transitional brand. They have a community that supports their product no matter what gets released onto the Disney Channel, no matter what theme park opens up, no matter what new t-shirt comes out. They are diehards for the brand, and they have been because of an experience that they have attached to through the years, right? And so for us to do that, there's also great companies that have products. You take a look at Nike, transitional brand. People have an experience and an association of what Nike represents to them. They're not associating it with the selling that Phil Knight used to do, selling rubber-soled shoes in the back of his car. They associate it with Just Do It or LeBron James or that commercial that resonated with them. And so it's a constant being able to find something that can last in people's gut based on an experience. And that's inspiration, right? And so that's kind of what we want to do with not just our channel, but our brand, but circle that around the community more. And so that's why we use that language. And that's, to me, what we represent is that feel for, a lasting brand by giving them experiences, not just selling them product. Now, the product has to be congruent to giving them an experience too. I truly believe that. So it kind of comes full circle. But, the last thing that I think, and we're constantly pushing right now to how do we create more bridge to our end consumer and to our raving fans. And what's amazing is seeing the reciprocation that, someone that might not ever promote or refer anyone to our company or brand, how much they want to be involved, how much they loved knowing about the new product, or how much they want to do a video contest. We have customers and fans participating in events that we do that don't just have a financial incentive to it.
As important as that emotional connection is between brands and customers, many believe that technology can at times drive a wedge between brands and audiences. While technology, of course, allows us to reach more people faster than ever before, it can seem at times like an impersonal way to reach certain demographics, if not done properly. But Amber Olson-Rourke, co-founder and chief sales and marketing officer at Neora, shows us that it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, using digital technology properly can increase and deepen the relationship between customers and brands. Today, that presents a valuable opportunity for all of us in the direct selling channel.
Even prior to, all of this happening, we were still always been very digitally focused. And so our brand partners had always been having Zoom parties, but the difference was the prospect had no idea what a Zoom was or how to get on it or how to download it. So it's definitely removed a lot of that friction, and I think in many ways brought the consumers closer to us. Consumers in today's environment are much more, comfortable getting on a Zoom to learn about something. They're much more comfortable purchasing something online. They're much more comfortable learning about information via social media. And so we really just focused our field on meeting people where they were at and maintaining all of the things that we knew made us successful offline would be the same things that would work online. And so, going back to the product experiences, making sure that they weren't just throwing up slides and giving a presentation, but having them do demos of putting on some product, mailing physical samples in advance of maybe a party, doing a virtual spa party where everyone had their samples. They could open them, on the Zoom and then all apply them together and ask questions. So it really forced us to think about how we could blend some of that product experiences and some of that more high touch elements. And the pitfall, I think, is that for some people think that, you can kind of hide behind technology and just post a few things on social media and, get results. And that's really not true. What's always made relationship marketing work is the relationship. And so focusing the field on use technology to create a relationship, and truly relationships that are relationships that you might not have been able to because of the wider scope, but use it to build relationships, not just market to people and sell to people. And so, they've done a great job finding that balance through that process.
But with all of the benefits of this virtual outreach, she reminded us that we all have to be mindful of how we manage that in a post-2020 world.
But it's also about meeting people where they're at. And right now, I feel like, what we talk to our field about is, how do you feel at the end of the day when you come home from work and someone invites you to another Zoom meeting or another online thing, right? People are tired of being behind a computer screen. So that's not where they are at. That's where they have been for the past year, which kind of gives us this false, I feel like somewhat of a false sense of that's the level of productivity will always bring, because as people then start to go live their lives, how the people live their lives is also a mix of virtual and in-person. So in direct sales, we have to go where people are, and people aren't just going to be behind a computer screen. They're also going to be live in person. And so what I do think it will change is just the way we do product experiences or parties, not as much of a formal sit down presentation, but our field is already transitioning back to incorporating in-person type events. We're calling them mini mixers because again, we want it to feel fun, because that's where people are at right now. They want to go do something fun with people that they like and have missed. And so thinking of different activities that correspond with our product so that there's an experience, for example, building, coming together and do meal prepping to build little pre-done salads for the week and talking about our weight management line, or doing sip and see results where people have a glass of wine and do a wine tasting and get pampered with a few of our products. So thinking of ways in which we can create a bigger experience that people are yearning for and blend in a product experience with it, present a little information. And that's really, we're just kind of kicking that back off. But so far, the reaction has been phenomenal. I would argue there's no easier time to get someone to come to a fun party than right now, because that's what they're looking for.
The value of being able to read the room was also top of mind for Dan Masuga, Chief Communications and Marketing Officer at USANA, during our conversation. Dan was very clear about the importance of creating a simple, streamlined customer experience in order to meet the expectations and remain agile in a fast-moving world.
I think the most important item we learned is that how you interact with your customer, right, is one of the most important things. Why you instead of someone else? What's the story? What's the narrative that you can tell your consumer in a short period of time, or provide an experience that will make them want to buy from you? That's a key thing. And then also continuing to innovate and remain agile. I think one of the toughest things is, and there are going to be companies I think that are going to go through this. You're going to see this success. You're going to stick with what you're doing. You're not going to think innovation. You're not going to think what happens next. And it's going to create issues, because the world, it's a dynamic marketplace. It doesn't sit still. So you have to look at those things. And I think it's tougher for larger companies not to sit and enjoy the success, because it's the old phrase, right? It's still true to this day. It's harder to turn a battleship than a speedboat. I mean, it takes a while. But if your team can work and think of agility and innovation and have that flexibility to move, it will really make a difference. And having to look 2 years out might almost be too far. I think you've got to start to look at, things are changing on a global basis. We don't know what's going to happen with different countries, and what you've got to prepare for those things and think about, okay, what do we do if, or what do we do when? How are we ready? And is the team ready to adapt to that? Because, you can create lists till you're blue in the face of priorities and things you want to do. Yeah. But if you keep that list static, if you're a box checker, you're going to run yourself into some issues. You've got to have that ability to go, you know what? Maybe this item isn't applicable anymore. And I know we've spent time and money on it, but we've got to pass on this and move to something new, because the marketplace has surpassed that priority.
Once you've earned their business, however, it's only the beginning. Dan emphasized the importance of brands developing a relationship with their customers to earn loyalty that goes well beyond their relationship with the individual distributor.
I'm going to liken it back to my discussion around a car manufacturer. If you go out and you look at cars, you start researching, you pick a brand. If you buy that brand, right? Our job is to build the brand. That's the home office job. That's the car manufacturer's job. Make the connection, build the story, get you excited about it. Once you come in and make the purchase, you've now connected yourself to an associate. We still look to the associates to build and nurture the relationship as if they're running, because they are running their business, We want to make sure they do that. But the reality is associates don't stay forever. We'd love them to. Some of them leave, some don't. I mean, the relationships get fractured. But if you think of that, once you've purchased a car, the manufacturer still keeps in touch with you, sends you brochures, sends you coupons, incentives. They maintain a relationship. They're providing incremental value. If anything happens to the organization that the associates enrolled in or the customers enrolled in, they still have a connection point. The biggest disconnect comes when someone is brought into the business, they buy the product, and no one ever talks to them again. What we've done is we're expanding the relationship of providing that incremental value to the customer or associate during the life of their purchase. Yes, it's predictive analytics to anticipate what their next purchase should be. It's keeping in touch with them if they've missed an order. Why did you miss it? What's going on? How can we work with you? It's having a relationship with the company. That way, if anything ever happens, the company steps in and says, okay, we're going to help manage the relationship, but they're still connected to an associate somewhere within the organization. You don't fracture that piece. If you fracture that piece, if I'm a business builder, I think back when I had a business, if somebody stepped in and took it from me, I'd be, well, quite frankly, very angry. But if you're going to help build the relationship that if I pause my business for 4 months and I come back and you're still in there, I jump right in. It's seamless. No beat's been missed because the company
I'd be appreciative. As a distributor, that my contacts and market was still warm for sure.
And that's the discussion that I have with associates who have concerns about where we step in. That's the exact conversation. Think about somebody who needs to pause their business. They've got a life event, or they're just head's not in it, whatever, but they still want to keep their distributorship. They just want to take a break. Okay. There's still a relationship there and you haven't lost your customer. There's still things flowing through your business. At some point, when you do get re-engaged, you haven't skipped a beat. Jump in, reconnect, and you're good to go. And that's the same thing. You buy the car, even if you don't own the car anymore, you trade it in, manufacturer still sells you stuff for a period of time to try to get you back.
Right.
And that's kind of where we look at it. And I only use that analogy because that's one of the things that I kind of brought over here, was that dynamic relationship that you had. And it's become one where it's working together, not just to attract customers, because as we go out and we send those out, your brand reputation, brand building, that makes it easier. If you mention it or you're walking around in your logo shirt and somebody says, oh my gosh, I think I got something in the mail, or I got an email about that, or I saw that on social media. It's a door opener. We're really, again, this goes back to a comment made earlier. We're in this together. We're not trying to take someone's customers away. It's not our job. Our job is to build the brand and make it something that is attractive and make it something that's easy for people to talk about so that they'll want to be part of it.
As co-founder and CEO of Red Aspen, one of the channel's fastest growing brands, Jessie McKinney is also passionate about creating loyalty, and her approach is a disruptive one. She believes that the relationship between the distributors and the executive team hinges on having the answer to two very critical questions: how and why.
I think that there's a really clear delineation between those two words, and they're both incredibly important. Your why for existing might be your family, your personal aspirations. It can be very existential. The how you get there, how you fulfill those personal aspirations, like that's the role I want to fill. I don't want Red Aspen to be the reason you live, right? Like that's one, that's a lot of pressure. And two, that's not fulfilling, I think, for any of us either. And I think it's also really important, not just in Red Aspen, but in any direct sales organization, for the executive team to really understand why their reps are there. Are they there because they want to be able to pay for their kid to go to soccer practice once a month or on a monthly basis? Or are they there because they just want to go on a date with their spouse or their partner, right? And they just need a little extra cash. And so I think that it's really important that we match up the how and the why for people. If we can help you earn the cash to go on an extra date night every month, like if that's your why for being here, we're going to help you do that. We can be your how. If you want to work incredibly hard, if you want to put your heart and soul into this and every single day, just hustle and make this a full-time job, make this your full-time career and earn a salary through this, we're willing to partner with you and be your how on that too. And I think that that's where passion comes in. Like the level of passion that you bring to this is also really important, because I can't instill in you the passion that it takes to achieve your why every day, right? But I can give you the tools to get there.
One of Red Aspen's defining strengths is its forward-thinking use of technology. As a millennial who has grown up in a tech world, Jess has a unique advantage in understanding how it can be leveraged as a tool for the channel. And she talked with me about the challenges and strategies of leveraging technology for direct selling brands.
I think we really push the envelope when it comes to technology. And technology in direct sales, I will be the first to say, is complicated because you are locked in to a specific commission engine. There's a lot that happens. Anyone who's in this space knows it's not as easy as just going to a Shopify website and getting started. It's very, very complicated, as we alluded to before. So many strategies that I'm going to share with you. The first one is, we really realized early on the limitations of back offices with any software provider, even if it's, done internally or whether you're using a third party. The back office isn't necessarily the right way to teach people. It's not necessarily the right way to give people all of those beautiful graphics that we spend so much time, energy, and money on. It's not the best way to onboard them. And there are a lot of really expensive platforms out there that say that they can help you. And I'm sure they're great. I'm sure that they are great, but they're usually closed source. You usually have to sign in to get there. And we really thought, why not just make it all completely public? So we have a website. It's treehouse.redaspenlove.com. Totally open source. Anyone, whether you are a rep, a brand ambassador, an affiliate, a customer, whoever, just someone who's looking at what we have out there, can go to this website. And there are marketing tabs. There are tabs for promos. You can learn about every single one of our products. You can download all of our commissions info, our policy info. You can learn about our events. It's everything that you need to train your team. You can also download all of these marketing assets and make them your own and share them on your social media. And I have to say, we have had so many people join us because they'll say, I don't know what I'm getting with another company, but I can already tell what I'm going to get with Red Aspen because it's all out there. So I don't know why so many companies, it didn't make sense to us. Why are so many companies taking their training and putting it behind a closed wall? Like, let's use our training as an asset and let's put it out there for all to see, so they can see what you're getting when you come here and how we're going to support you from a marketing training perspective. So that when you get your business kit, it automatically, you've got your card and that card takes you, it's like a welcome card, and that card takes you to an onboarding that we have on this totally just open source training platform. So that's one thing that we've done. Another thing that we've done, we've really pushed our vendors a lot in trying to come up with fun and innovative solutions. So we started a program called our Rockstar Sales Club program. And that sort of spun into a whole strategy that has to do with promo codes. So every month you can earn promo codes here at Red Aspen. And we looked at that and we said, why, so many companies will say like, this weekend only 20% off. But if you look in the influencer channel, if you look out into social selling and that world, how many times do you see like swipe up and use code Jesse M and get 10% off, right? And we were like, that is where we need to lean into. So we went in and we've actually developed all of these custom promo codes that upload into brand ambassadors' back office every month, and they earn them just by selling. So they can earn in a month, they can earn a fun bracelet that we give them and they redeem that with a promo code, or they can earn a 20% off join promo code that's totally unique and custom to them. And so we've really tried to push the boundaries of technology in terms of saying, how can we really meld social selling and direct selling and create this really fun platform?
Jessie Lee Ward is also a master of using technology, and I absolutely loved my conversation with her. As one of direct selling's top distributors, she is a social media superstar who in less than 4 years at Prove It has built a team of more than 1 million customers with 25,000 worldwide promoters in 28 countries. Unbelievable. But in addition to leveraging technology, she said it's also important for brands to do one thing that actually may seem low tech, but has very high value. And it simply comes down to listening to what the field has to say. Here's what she says that's so important.
Because there is nobody better than the people that are on the front lines. These are people that before you ever run a promo, before you ever put out an incentive, before you ever run a sale, before you ever even come up with a product, ask people, hey, maybe it's a group of 5 people, not a big group. Literally, I'm talking like 5 to 7. Read the book. But 5 to 7 people, okay, well, hold on a minute. What do you think? Because you're the one in people's homes every day. You're the one on social media, and you hear people say, I want this flavor. I want that scent. I want that product. My customers have been asking for this. Hey, when are we opening this country? When are we doing this? When are we doing that? We know we have that info. You can run all the, Facebook analytics to see who's clicking like on your page. You can do whatever, but there is no better voice than your top leaders. There is no better voice who's actually in action, right? And so if you want to multiply this thing, you better know these people. You better get to know their minds, and you better build your systems and your whatever else around what they say is needed. Those people should be so comfortable with you that it feels way more like family. Way more like, I'm gonna pick up the phone right now and call you on your crap. Okay. Like, I will pick up that phone and call my CEO on his crap, and I have no fear of him terminating me, and he has no fear of me leaving. We have a relationship. And so if you do more of that, you will see your company expand.
In addition to listening to the field, Jessie Lee says that many leaders could take another very simple steps toward lowering attrition rates and increasing loyalty. And here's one very important piece of advice that she had.
CEOs that are listening to this, please create systems. Okay. If you want to lower your attrition, create systems. People understand jobs because since we were children, we were put in a cycle of jobs. We are not natural entrepreneurs because we have been woken up at 6 a.m. since basically infancy to be at school by 7:30 a.m., to be out of school and clock out by 4:00 p.m. If you do have, you get the point. We're in this cycle. This is what we're trained to do. You're not trained to think outside of the box and think entrepreneurship. So since 97% of your field is naturally employee mindset, build structures for people who are employee mindset driven to thrive.
As you can see, technology and the way to use it properly became one of the overriding themes of this season's podcast. The frequency at which this subject came up underscores just how crucial it is to the channel as a whole. Shama Hyder was among those who provided very clear insights on how technology and social media are affecting the direct selling channel as a whole and many other industries. As the founder and CEO of Zen Media, a global marketing and PR firm, Shama has the unique and valuable perspective on the role of all things social, and she explained the importance of creating an effective content strategy.
Often seeing social in a silo without earned media, without owned media, without good content is dangerous. A lot of times it's not a lack of social strategy, it's a lack of content strategy, right? There's just not good content. And so you've got to think about not just what your company says, but what are other people saying? I mean, look at, influencer marketing. Influencer marketing for most direct selling companies means their own distributors, where that's, which is fine if you want to keep kind of, it's like if you want an echo chamber, but if you're trying to expand your base, it really makes sense to bring in outside experts, to bring outside, influencers. So I mean, look, I think, should you talk about your product and services? Sure. But think about what you want to see as a consumer when you go on social sites, right? It's more about that community, the ethos, and it has to work in conjunction with your overall strategy. It's not a standalone. So I think that's important to understand too. I think the other thing is, another myth is companies feel like if people aren't engaging with their content proactively, that it's not working. And nothing could be further from the truth. The majority of the things that we engage with, we do not engage with proactively or leave a mark, okay? So what I want to talk to you and the listeners about is dark social. The majority of decisions that are made on dark social. They are not made where you have full visibility. No one looks at your product, post on Facebook, goes, wow, this is really cool, leaves a comment and says, boy, guys, this is exactly what I was looking for. Thanks so much. Here I go. Let me go talk to the missus right now. Doesn't happen, right? But what does happen is they look at that post and then they move on. And then they see another post, and then they move on. And then they talk to a friend on, WhatsApp who says, hey, have you heard of this? I'm really into it. And you're like, I've been seeing their posts about this stuff. It's like, I don't know. Do you think this is legit? What do you think? Then the friend says, yeah, man, it's been a huge game changer. Matt from so-and-so, he's been doing it. He really believes in this stuff. This company's awesome. They're going places. And then this guy does nothing, right? Does nothing. Then finally, he's sitting for dinner and his wife says, I read a really interesting article today on Inc. about how this company has been, who's really been championing this community that we care about, or whether it's fitness, this is really cool. And the guy says, I just talked to my buddy who told me about Matt, who's doing this. They've been looking at their posts. Okay, maybe we should check it out.
Strategy, of course, plays a significant role in success. And that's true whether we're talking about a content strategy, a social media strategy, or any of the other strategies that are at our companies. Jacob McLean, who's one of the brightest minds in the industry, joined Monate as Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer early in 2021 to lead enterprise strategy, business planning, business intelligence, and more. He sat down with me to talk about why the Chief Strategy Officer role has become central to the success of the channel.
From my perspective, I really see it, again, with that synergy of the outside services really matter. But the inside perspective, I almost see as the steward of the process and the governance of your strategy, right? Fundamentally, strategy is making decisions, a series of decisions. But I always extend that in the CSO role to it's making decisions about how to allocate scarce resources and seeing ideas through to reality. Because ultimately the strat planning process begins with a blank sheet of paper. And if it's successful, it ends with financial results. So as we've conceived of the role at Moonehead, you always begin with what you want to accomplish in role design. Same thing in compensation design, right? Like if you want to put together a compensation plan, what do you want people to do, right? And pay them to do that. It's really not as complicated as I think as some people make it, because the boxes and numbers are so overwhelming. So we've applied that same approach here, where if we're going to need to make decisions and we're going to have to see them through reality, the role really encompasses, shepherding the beginning through the governance of the planning process fundamentally. We also need to know what our business looks like and be able to measure our success. And so in that sense, the business intelligence, data and analytics function also is a fundamental part of strategy, totally connected there because it's an important input into an annual cycle, but it's also critical to keeping track and measuring and making course corrections to those plans.
Before we ended our conversation, Jacob also provided valuable advice on the importance of deciding where to play and how to win as part of a business strategy.
Beyond that winning proposition, you have to come up with the numbers that are going to guide success at the top level. How many customers, what kind of revenue you're looking for. From there, you move into where to play. Again, it's all kind of a metaphor for a game. Winning proposition, what does it mean to win? Okay, where are we going to play? What products, what consumer targets, what channels, what types of channel partners for our channel? What is the profile of the sales representative that's going to be sharing your brand? Which countries? And that's a process of evaluating what the option set is and looking at the fit of the immovables in your business. Ultimately, everything can kind of move, but there are some things that are tied to that winning proposition that are non-negotiable now. And it takes some things out of motion so that you aren't just in this kind of with circular reference, right? I use Excel a lot over my career and love it, but a lot of times there's this constant questioning and retreading old ground. And if you can start to bake some of these things in sequential order, it makes strategy way less gross and way less frustrating. So winning proposition, where to play. Then you move into how to win, which is really just the programs that you want to execute. And this is really tricky because they have to be kind of arranged into a taxonomy so that you have a hierarchy of work to be done and results to be achieved, that you can group them together. You can make sure that you have the management structure around them with clear accountability. And then that helps you understand the interrelationships of them. And then lastly, which is super important, I think people always think of strategies like the first couple steps, but I think as many folks have mentioned, it's ongoing. It's a full-time job. The type of work that you're doing is going to look a little different depending on the time of year and what stage of the strategy setting or refresh program you are. But how to configure is super important. The last step, beyond how to win, you have to understand the people, process, and technology that you need to actually bring those programs about. Mm-hmm. And they have to be budgeted, and then you have to make sure you're measuring as you go.
My conversation with Jeff Bell covered a lot of territory that included a look at his impressive and wide-reaching career and shows how he applies all of that vast experience to his role as CEO at Legal Shield, the leading provider of legal, privacy, and identity theft protection services in the US and Canada. Jeff has worked in executive positions with such diverse brands as Microsoft, Daimler Chrysler, Ford Motor Company, and more, all of which have deepened the insights that he brings to the channel. One thing that he emphasized during our conversation was the misperception about exclusivity.
You don't have to have exclusivity to be successful in network marketing and direct sales. That may sound counterintuitive, but let me go further. If you have something unique that everyone doesn't know about and everyone doesn't get every day, direct sales is a powerful, powerful business opportunity because you're bringing the good news. So we've learned that we don't need to have exclusivity in order to have success in multiple channels. And again, at a couple of million members, we could double again, and we're still just scratching the scratch. We'd have a 33% penetration at that level of all households in the United States of America.
Jeff was among the many leaders who addressed the changes and challenges brought about by the year 2020. And he had valuable advice about what leaders can focus on in this ever-changing environment.
I made the decision people can live where they want, and we were going to be using technology like we are today to work for all, when we first started, every other week I was in Ada, right? And the team would come in every other week, 20 times a year, if you will, 20 weeks. And now it's once a month because we're so much better at it. What's the insight to answer your question? The insight is focus on culture, focus on team building, focus on personal development. We as a team of 27 vice presidents and above that run this company, we break bread when we're in Ada together. We spend time on transparency and authenticity and vulnerability. We address any relationship issues proactively to make them constructive. We collaborate, we problem solve together. So it has everything to do with keeping the humanity now that you're using technology.
The changes brought about by technology have infiltrated every aspect of direct selling. And when I talked with Danny Lee, we had the opportunity to dig into those changes a little deeper. The president and CEO of 4Life has been part of the direct selling channel since 2008. And he shared how they turned the elephant in the room named Amazon into a successful strategy for the brand and its distributors.
It just felt like this is a major part of what we're supposed to do, especially if we're, now we're more focused than ever in direct selling about customer acquisition. And for the average person, that's a really big deal. When you're looking at buying a product, and price is one of the key features of that. There's quality, there's service element, and there's other aspects that are strongly considered. But price is one of the, if not the most important piece of that decision. And so I think this whole premise of brand equity and the pricing strategy for us at 4Life has been built on what I call this 95-5 rule. I've heard it said, I don't know where it came from, but I tended to believe it, that out of 100 people, if you talk to somebody about a direct selling opportunity, 95 of those people are not going to have any interest at all in that, what we call financial opportunity in this industry. Probably 5 of them would be very interested, but of those 95, all of them are interested in a great product with a great value, right? And so that we can't dismiss that. We can't dismiss those people. And one of the best things about our industry are the fantastic products that we do have. And we feel the exact same way about our products at 4Life. You know, we are the immune system company. We have products that we think are second to none. So how do we attract and not ignore those 95 people that have no interest in being part of a financial opportunity? In fact, they might be turned off by what they view as some type of attachment that they don't want to be associated with a particular company, brand, or person. And so we have to accept this reality in today's world that Amazon does exist. Walmart.com exists, eBay exists, Mercado Libre exists in Latin America, you know, Taobao and these other online platforms, they exist, and they are the mothership. They are the 800-pound gorilla. They are the marketplace in today's world. And we are there. Tell me a direct selling company who doesn't have products on these platforms. Everybody does. And so the question is, are you going to just be passive, going to stick your head in the sand and just hope for the best? Or are you going to run to those theaters of war, if you will, and establish your brand and protect your brand and establish your price? And so for these 95 people out there that are interested in a great product, but maybe don't want to have anything to do with you, we at 4Life feel like a retail price is critical to that strategy.
Beyond that strategy, Danny explained how brands can change their view of platforms like Amazon and other marketplaces and see them as an opportunity to support their distributors, not compete with them.
It's about brand awareness. It's about third-party validation. It's about helping our affiliates do what they do best. And they are the ones who do what they do best. In fact, I'm convinced that the people who buy 4Life products on Amazon are only buying them because they heard about them from 4Life affiliates or consumed them once upon a time. And for whatever reason, they lost contact with that person, or they don't know that they can do it easily at 4life.com, which is also a critical part of the strategy. You know, we're hoping to turn people back to 4life.com and back to affiliates because we want them touching us, right? We can offer 100% satisfaction guarantee. We can offer you fantastic service, better service than Amazon can. And so we're hoping that it's turning people back to 4Life.
When I sat down with Glenn Sanford, he delivered fascinating insights into creative thinking and entrepreneurship. The founder of eXp Realty and CEO of eXp World Holdings and Success has always been a fan of creating his own path instead of following an existing one. And he talked with me about how he comes up with his ideas and how he identifies their potential.
But one of the books I got was the Entrepreneur's Manual, and I read it, and there was a section in there on how to identify business opportunities. And I really took it to heart. And it was what is one pain point that you have that you can identify and that isn't being solved in the marketplace. So what's as you mentioned, the itch, and then sort of look at how many other people are like me that has the same itch. And so for me, that has been a very formative way to come up with some of the business ideas that I've had over the years. Now, most of the time, you think other people have an itch and they don't. And so, that's why, most entrepreneurs have started multiple businesses. I think I've got 17 businesses under my belt, 13 or 14 of which I wish I wouldn't have started in the first place, other than the learning experiences I got from them. But it is part of the process, sort of identifying niches, identifying motivation, sort of learning what works, what doesn't, why do people do what they do, and why do people join with you or not as you try to build something that you believe is worthwhile. And so there's a whole big process. But I think that first part is, if I have a challenge and I can solve it for me, are there other people I can solve it for? So at the end of the day, in some respects, I get that product for free because other people are paying for it.
In addition to sharing many of the lessons he's learned on his journey as an entrepreneur, he also addresses whether entrepreneurship is a skill set or a mindset, and which one lays the foundation for a successful entrepreneurial journey.
I think it's a mindset first,
Okay.
And then it's the skill set second, meaning that you have to decide who you want to be when you grow up. And then you have to pursue everything you can to be that person. And most people haven't decided to be anything more than they are right now. So, then, going and doing the sales training and doing the work, it doesn't take on as much meaning for them. But if you've decided, hey, and I decided at a young age, like I was probably 15, 16 or so, when I sort of recognized sales, and I was reading like the Zig Ziglars and the Napoleon Hills and the Og Mandinos and the what have you. I mean, I was reading really good quality content, but I recognized that sales was a fundamental skill that once I had it, I would always be employable. And I knew that I wanted to be able to make money in the future and be able to do it. And I figured that if there was a recession, whether there was a depression, if there was a whatever, there would always be a need for a good salesperson. So for me, first and foremost, I wanted to make sure that I could always put food on the table if necessary. And so that's why I pursued sales. And then it was really sales plus learning sort of business acumen that came from sort of those formative years, but then just trying stuff over the years, figuring out what would work from a business perspective. But it was mindset first, skill set second. You could probably train first, and then eventually the switch might flip. So you could sort of say, I'm gonna learn sales, and then eventually the switch flips. But I think if you can choose first what you're going to do and then do it, it works way better than doing stuff and then figuring out if that's something you really want to do.
It's no secret that every industry experiences some form of change as a result of what we experienced in 2020 and the global events surrounding it. Prasad Gankanda, Chief Operating Officer of Young Living, talked in depth about the importance of creating a more customer-centric experience, as well as how to pivot to meet new challenges while stabilizing for growth. One thing that stood out to me from our conversation was the importance of creating cross-functional teams.
Change is hard, and change management is hard. If I have to answer, your question with one word, I'd say communicate. Communicate. Set your expectations, from the get-go. So creating cross-functional teams, that is very, very important, Wayne. Often we love to live in our bubble and do what's best for the bubble. But if you take the time to step out of that bubble and look, what's best for the company, when you were living in that bubble, the decisions you made might not be the right thing for the company. So cross-functional teams are very important, and it played a key role here. So what we did was we brought multiple teams together: operations, customer service, sales, marketing, you name it. Everyone was very involved. We had, training every single day, every single week. We made sure the teams that are, on the phone, constantly answering questions, like we made sure that team was trained extremely well. Because, when you launch a website or any program out there, the very first thing they do is they either text, some of the corporate members, right? Or they call the call center. So you need to make sure you are very prepared for that. So what we did was we went through a massive, training period within the company, where each and everyone was training, all teams across the company. So my answer would be communicate, over-communicate, and don't be afraid to over-communicate. Set your expectations, and be prepared if things go south. Always have a plan B.
Prasad also took a deep dive into the role of operations and how it should not be overlooked as something that can help or hurt your brand.
Operations play a huge role when, if you're not careful, right, operations, those touch points could hurt your brand. At the same time, if you take time, heart, and passion to what you do, operations can elevate the brand. We all know, the unboxing experience, right?
Yeah.
When a brand new customer comes into any company out there, like you're eagerly waiting for that shipment to arrive. And that unboxing experience, in my opinion, should be 5-star. If you as a company, like what we do is, we put a lot of heart and soul into that pick and pack operations. You could throw a bunch of items together in a package, or you could take the time to nicely pack it in such a way, it represents your brand. So operations do play a huge role from, pick and pack, getting that product shipped into the customer, the last mile delivery. You might be partnering with companies out there like FedEx, DHL, UPS, and even that last mile delivery, the driver, how that person delivers the product to the customer, even though we are not in control of it, that does represent the brand. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure not just what you have within your control, even what you don't have, within your control, you need to make sure you measure them. And feedback is a gift. You need to also make sure you ask that question from the customer. How did the experience go? Was it a 5-star delivery experience? Like, was it a 5-star experience or not? Understanding that real-time, data, like, that real-time understanding is very important. So to your point, I am very passionate when it comes to operations. It could hurt your brand, or it could elevate your brand.
As Prasad noted, understanding the experience of customers is crucial to retention and growth. That's something that Emre Tuna understands and is using to create an environment that is welcoming to this next generation of direct selling distributors that we're all now seeing. As president of pharmacy, Emre led the brand's US launch in 2019, and the beauty and skincare company has enjoyed incredible growth with more than $447 million in sales. One of the key elements for the brand is appealing to a youthful market, and Emre explained how changing their language is helping pharmacy do that.
First, I just want to give an example. So nowadays, a cool and new idea is affiliate marketing, which is very new. People think it's the future, it's not old. And affiliate marketing is actually almost identical to what we're doing in direct selling. It's very similar. Very similar. So we always try to explain it through that. The affiliate marketing is, well, we say direct selling is affiliate marketing plus down generations and other people. So you earn commissions from them as well. So we give you all the factors and advantages of affiliate marketing, plus we add that team building area. When we come into this Gen Z ideas, obviously they still have this, ideas and concepts, as you mentioned. And I think the most significant reason for that is when I talk to them, they say, my grandma was selling XYZ. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that really creates that idea. Even their grandma was selling these products. So yes, they do still have, but if not only us, but also the remaining industry, the other companies, if we have an effort together, I think we can change this, because we have a lot of advantage and opportunity there. As I mentioned, all these facts about what new generation wants, we have it. I think this is changing. We're changing it. Is it completely changed? Absolutely not. No, there are still those kind of ideas, but this is a joint effort of the industry, and I feel like everyone is focusing a lot on digitalization and younger generations.
As pharmacy continues to look at expanding into new markets, Emre shared how they ensure the company will be successful with new product launches.
obviously we listened to our distributors quite a lot, so we asked these questions. But one of the important things that we decided later on, when we initially launched our health and wellness line, we were not manufacturing these products in-house. Well, we were manufacturing everything in the beauty side, yes, but for health and wellness, no, we had our third-party suppliers, they were producing for us. And then once we saw the demand and how we can be more successful and advantageous, we said we have to manufacture these in-house. So that would give us a lot of advantages. First, speed. If we have a new product idea, we can produce it much faster in-house than outsourced. Second, capacity. So let's say something happened, we launched it. It went very well. We don't want to stay out of stock for 6 months. This gives us a huge advantage. So far, we haven't finalized the facility. It's under construction now. It will be live within the next 2 to 3 months. And we're having all kinds of infrastructure there, powder products, liquids, capsules, anything you imagine. We will effervescence, anything. So that is one of the important things we're actually trying to do. And that is something we did to make sure we are successful within this launch.
When I sat down with John Parker, I had the opportunity to tap into one of the truly great minds of the channel. The Chief Sales Officer and Regional President West of Amway has spent his entire 29-year career with Amway, giving him a unique position from which to look at all the changes that are happening in the industry. He noted that the channel has been able to continue to adapt to rapid change because of the entrepreneurial spirit of all those who compose it.
What makes our industry so unique is the fact that we are companies and communities of entrepreneurs who have the ability and frankly the desire to be able to adapt and adjust to a changing marketplace and a changing environment. And it's been those changes and our ability not just to adapt, but to develop the skill set and frankly, the ingredient inside of our recipe of success in our businesses of embracing changes and adapting our businesses and the way in which we support our entrepreneurs and the way in which they support their customers and their communities, that's created a dynamic where I think we've developed that muscle as an industry to be able to continuously improve and take advantage of whether it's new technology, new consumer expectations, even new entrepreneurial sort of experiences in communities, that really is proving that our ongoing ability to adapt is a strength and one that we're going to continue to lean on as the marketplace continues to change and change faster than it did in the past.
While John has so much to teach us, he said that he personally is excited about what he is learning from this next generation of direct selling leaders who are rising up. And he shared some of what he has learned from them.
Part of what's been so fun for me in the last 5 years or so, Wayne, is I've learned so much from sort of the next generation of leadership in the company, from the newer managers and directors that are 10 and 20 years younger than me, and this idea of kind of reverse mentorship, it's real, and if we're willing to adapt and learn and not just listen but actually observe, I think we can be more effective leaders by creating the space for leadership styles that are different than our own. And if I could use this as just a kind of a plug for how critical diversity and inclusion is, both as being the right thing to do, but also the positive impact that it creates in our companies and our businesses. It's requiring change, but frankly, it's change that is needed to make our businesses better, and something that I know is something we all benefit from as we move our businesses forward.
One of the most visible and prominent leaders in the next generation is Jason Dorsey, president of the Center for Generational Kinetics. With an emphasis on Millennial and Gen Z, the center is the go-to resource for businesses who are looking to crack the code about the mindset, worldviews, behaviors of generations from baby boomers to Gen Z. Jason took us on a whirlwind tour through the mindset of generations, and he's emphasized the importance of working across generations.
Millennials are older than most people assume. The oldest millennials are well into their early 40s. I just did an interview on middle-aged millennials, right? So this group that people think is eternally 25 has been eternally 25 for over 15 years now. And so now they're really going into a new life stage. They're starting families. There's all kinds of interesting things going on with millennials that we have to sort of reframe that whole conversation. The reason it's relevant to Gen Z that's so fascinating is that the oldest members of Gen Z, because I know somebody's thinking, well, why do we want to talk about teenagers? That's not what we're talking about here. The oldest members of Gen Z are already 25 years old. They're the fastest growing generation of adults in the workforce, whether that's working in direct selling, and you know me, I have a lot of direct selling company data. Gen Z is massive for people to understand. And Gen Z is very different than millennials. What our research shows is they're much more frugal with their money. Why is that? Well, they came of age around the Great Recession, which really impacted them. They weren't old enough to work, but they were old enough to understand what was going on, feel the anxiety, hear their parents talk about losing jobs, people losing houses. I mean, it was a really tough time. And they were old enough to understand it, but young enough for it to still change some of their perspective on the world. And that's a really key life stage thing that normally I spend a lot of time talking about. But the key here is Gen Z came of age with that Great Recession. Their parents were also Gen X primarily, who were super skeptical anyways. And then what happened? They finally hit adulthood. What they've crashed into now? The pandemic. So you put it all together and what do you see? Gen Z is driving double-digit growth at thrift stores. Their savings is through the roof, which is really wild. They have emergency accounts, and they're like 17 years old with an emergency account. What 17-year-old had an emergency account? And they're like, oh yeah, I've got extra money on my Cash App or Venmo or whatever it is that they're using. So fascinating. And at the same time, Gen Z wants to be more entrepreneurial. But what's interesting is in our research, we lead lots of studies on Gen Z. We do, as you know, our annual State of Gen Z study every year, and then our new Z Economy book that just came out. What we find with Gen Z is that as you look ahead with them, is Gen Z right now is interested in starting their own business, but this is the secret, and this is so fascinating for direct selling. They want to start it while they're doing something else. See, there was this other perspective that, oh, if you're going to do something, you got to jump in with both feet, and that's how you really become an entrepreneur. That's how you do. This generation is really risk averse, or as I would say, they're just smarter about it. They're like, hey, I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to do this until this other thing really takes off, and then I'll do just that. But it's a fascinating approach, and the easier it is for them to get into it, the easier it is for them to feel some traction, like they're actually moving forward, making some progress, developing those skills, all that sort of stuff. That's really powerful for creating the momentum to get them to do it. They're also the number one group to refer their friends to want to be a part of an opportunity like this if we position it the right way, which means not talking about the word referral, by the way. And so we see that Gen Z, they're looking for extra sources of income. They want to own their own business, but they want to do it in a lower risk way, which is really fascinating. They're all about connection with people. It just looks different than older generations.
Jason sees the direct selling industry as a natural fit for Gen Z, but only if we make the right moves.
A lot of direct selling companies did not successfully adapt to engage millennials until it was too late. They struggled. They said, oh, we're going to do what we've always done. They're going to eventually grow out of it. Well, what happened? They didn't. And we saw a lot of legacy names struggle, and we saw new companies rapidly emerge. What I hope will happen now is the opposite. People say, okay, Gen Z is different. There's all similarities. Look, we're all human. We all want to feel valued. We all want to feel included. We all want to feel loved. We all want to feel like we're doing something important. But the how we do many of those things is different, particularly when it comes to communication, when it comes to learning, training, events, incentives, all these sorts of things. And so being able to accurately do that and engage this next generation is a massive, massive opportunity. And I'll tell you, the direct selling companies that don't adapt, they're really going to be in trouble. Because if they thought millennials were hard to eventually adapt to and expensive and challenging and all that stuff, just wait for Gen Z.
Jason added that while the industry needs to be including Gen Z in order to future-proof itself, that inclusion must not come at the expense of other generations.
If you really want to future-proof your business, you've got to understand Gen Z now. Otherwise, you won't just miss Gen Z. You could end up losing everybody else, which, by the way, there's a number of brands that have gone through that story. So I think the challenge, and this is sort of the key when I talk with direct selling executives, is you want to make sure that we're embracing Gen Z and millennials without losing Gen X and boomers. Because the message you don't want to telegraph is, oh, Gen X and boomers are over, we want millennials and Gen Z, because that's not the message. The message is what worked with boomers and Gen X may not work with millennials and Gen Z. So if you want these younger generations, there are some things we can do differently that still honor, celebrate, respect, and embrace boomers and Gen X. We're just creating room for the next generations to drive growth. And it's such an important message. That's why people say, oh, Jason, come talk to us about Gen Z. I'm like, well, I'll talk about Gen Z as long as we can talk about the other generations too. Because it's really about what we call at CGK, we call it generational context. And that's really where the value of this is helping to look across these generations and sort of put it together in a way that you go, okay, I understand that. I could, do that. And the other thing I think is really important concept, Wayne, that I just want to make sure we mention. This is not about catering or coddling. This is not about everybody needs a trophy and they should get an award for showing up and a ribbon and whatever else. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're saying is whoever adapts wins, and somebody will. And my view is might as well be you. So if that's the case and you really want to grow and you really want to future-proof your business and you really want to drive these outcomes, then these are the things you need to know and find the right steps that you can take. And when you do that, what you find is other generations like it too.
As we wrap up 2021 and look towards a new year, all of us at DSN are very excited about the opportunities that lie ahead, not just for the channel and for the brands, but for the individual distributors and leaders who breathe life into these brands every day. We're looking forward to a new year of podcast episodes that are going to feature some of the industry's best and brightest minds, providing more insight and strategy, innovation, momentum, resilience, and so much more. Well, everybody, that's our look back at the last year's episodes. I really want to thank you for tuning in and for all of the feedback that you've given us in an attempt to make this podcast better. All we really want to do is to provide value and have a conversation as a channel as a whole. We're all in this together, and I, for one, am honored to be part of this journey as we all strive to learn, grow, and evolve as companies and the channel as a whole. We invite you to subscribe to the podcast and be the first to know if new episodes are available. So go ahead and visit directsellingnews.com as your go-to daily resource for breaking global news, emerging trends, and powerful stories so that you can stay informed and engaged and always one step ahead. DSN is hosting a first-of-its-kind tech summit designed specifically for CIOs, CTOs, and other tech executives in direct selling. So this virtual live stream event will take place on Tuesday, February 22nd. You'll be able to join forward-thinking leaders to explore other trends, accelerate learning, and guide near-term decisions, all with one goal, and that's to help you and your organization achieve stronger performance against your most critical priorities. As a marketing person, I would also encourage other sales and marketing execs to attend to try to learn to close that gap between the So look for more information and details in early January, but for now, we invite you to save the date for Tuesday, February 22nd. If you haven't signed up for the DSN VIP community, I highly encourage it. Simply text the word JOIN to 214-239-3043, and DSN will send you news and information you care about most directly to your phone. It's an incredible, easy way to keep up with what's happening in the channel, and I've found it super useful, and I love staying connected to the channel. It makes me feel like I'm really part of the community with all of you. So on behalf of everyone here at Direct Selling News and the Direct Approach podcast team, thank you for an amazing year. Look forward to an incredible 2022 with each of you. Thank you.